So we have this environment tab here in V-Ray, and you need to understand this and what this is doing when you're lighting your scene, and you need to understand different settings which you have within HDRI. There's common things which people do wrong, which give them double GI and double reflections, and these are points which you need to understand and you need to be aware of so you can get the scene lit correctly. And this applies for interiors as well as exteriors. So I'm just going to go in top view, press T and then Z to zoom in. And we're just going to start with taking a light here and just creating a light. So just go V-Ray light and just drag it, drop it somewhere. Click over here on this properties tab and change this type from plane to dome. And then you've got no map here, so just select this and close general, come down to V-Ray and choose V-Ray HDRI. And then what you need to do is wherever your HDRIs are, just locate those and select the one which you're going to go with. And by default this multiplier is set at 30, so change your light multiplier to 1. Open up your material editor and just drag and drop this over here in the material editor, make it an instance, and double click on this just so it comes up here, and you've got your multiplier here and your render multiplier set properly there. So next what you're going to need to do is just make sure you've got your camera, you've placed that, and select your camera, and really you need to pay attention to your aperture here, and you need to pay attention to your shutter type. I've put mine to seconds and said make it 1/20th of a second, and then come over here to your exposure, and you might need to click on exposure control installed, or install exposure control, sorry, and then just select if you want to do EV or ISO and put that to the amount which you think is correct for your camera. Don't get too picky about it, just set it to what you think is right, and then adjust the lights really how you want them to be. So I've gone global switches, and I've turned on override material here, and I've got nothing in here right now. So if I open the material editor, just come here to materials, V-Ray, double click on V-Ray material, that drags it over here, double click on this, and then just take this straight over here into the override material and make that an instance. So now what's going to happen is you're going to get that gray material instead of all of this, and I'm just going to see what resolution I'm rendering at here. That's too much for tests really, just go down to 7 or 800. That should be fine, it's more than enough as well. And I've left here, look, I've left this on progressive. Normally I use buckets for rendering, but leave it on progressive for this, we're just doing some tests. Now you can see here, the light needs to be brighter, so just open up material editor and double click on here, and you can adjust it right here in the render multiplier. So I'm just going to jump straight up to 100, which is really bright, but I don't like the idea of going 10 and it's still too dark, 20 it's still too dark. I'd rather the idea of blowing it out and seeing how it comes, and if it's too blown out, it's too blown out. But now realize also that in HDRIs, when people make these, they create the sun right in the middle of the HDRI, right in the middle of the image. And this little line here on this guy, that shows you where the sun's coming from. So right in the middle means the sun's coming this way. So 90 degrees on the rotation, see horizontal rotation here, would mean it's coming this way, 180, 290. So just adjust this, to how you want it to be. If you want light coming in through this window, which is here, we're going to need it to be like 90, then plus maybe 45, so 135. So let's chuck that on there. Oops. And then I'm just going to close this guy for now. And let's render. And now this will be much brighter because the sun directly is coming in through this window. Open this up. Just drop this multiplier. Let's try 20. Now we know it's blown out. Okay, we know 100 was too much. And that's still too much. So you often get into this where you're trying to figure this out and you're going, okay, what are we going to do? And maybe even 1 was too much, but the light was coming in from the other side. So let's bring that back round, And you look at this and you go, actually, I just want soft shadows. So maybe I don't want the light rotated. Maybe I do want it the other way around, and maybe I do want this multiplier up super high, but I don't want the sunlight coming in directly. And you go through all of this sort of stuff when you're figuring out what you're going to do. And you go, yeah, actually, I kind of like these soft shadows. Now, this brings up another issue, which sometimes is used And that's why you don't use the HDRI as a light. You just use it for global illumination. And I'll show you how you do that quickly. You just delete the light out. And you take this little guy here, and you drop it into this environment tab. And so you turn on the GI environment, and really if you turn this on, you're going to get this color here. If we turn off the map, you get this color. If I now render, you'll see that there's no light, but I'm getting color. And that's just from this. I mean, in reality, if this is off, and I render, I should get absolutely nothing. See, so there's nothing coming. So this light is coming just from this with GI environment on, and sometimes that's nice. So you should know that this is here, and that this can do what it does, and you can adjust this. And you can play with this, because here you've got a white light coming in, and if you want, you can, here you can make it a yellowish light, and you can turn up this multiplier. So just be aware that this is there, and this can create nice soft shadows, and you can play around with this light. But in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to use this HDRI we created earlier, and we're going to just put this straight here into the map slot, and make sure map is on. Now this multiplier here only affects the color, so, we don't need to bother with that when we have this in here. But now what happens is when you render, you're just getting GI. You're not getting any actual light. And so even if I rotate this guy so the light's coming in through the window, you're still just getting GI. You're not getting an actual light, so you don't get that harsh blowout. You're going to get a different quality of light because you get, the color of the light as opposed to the color of the sky. But we're not getting that really harsh blowout. You're getting really soft lighting coming in here. So be aware that, you can, and I often will, just put this light in here, and I won't use a V-Ray light in the scene at all. And some people might say, well, that's incorrect, but what's correct is something which gives you lovely lighting. So that's more important. What I'm trying to say is, if you go everything and make everything photorealistic, your scene's going to take a long time to render. And what's important here is that you get it looking like a photo. And this can help you get things looking like a photo. Now, even if I have my HDRI light here, so let's turn this off. Let's clear this. Oops. Clear that. Let's turn this off. Let's come back to a V-Ray light and put it back in here and make it a dome. And we're going to take this HDRI and put this over here. And if we render this, now we have a problem that we go, okay, the lighting's correct. Well, not in this case, so let's reduce this down. Right, so the problem becomes that you get your lighting correct, and I'll show you what I mean. You bring up your material editor, you adjust your multiplier. You've made sure your rotation of the HDRI is where you want it to be, and you render out. Okay, so you get your multiplier here correct. You get your lighting how you want it. You go, okay, well, there's not enough light coming in here, so let's put this multiplier up to 5. And you make sure your V-Ray light multiplier is set at 1. And you just play around with these amounts until it's creating the amount of light which you like, which you want, which you think should be in the room. Normally I'll use this light cache pass to see is it lighting enough. I might leave it a bit longer. And you can see, it's still quite dark. So you come in and you put this up to 20. Maybe even go a bit higher than that, maybe 30. But you'll notice that as I push this up outside the window, this gets more and more blown out. So, I end up with something like this. And I go, okay, I like that, for example, right? It's just an example, but you go, okay, I like that. That's the amount of light I want coming in from the HDRI. But now outside the window, this is incorrect. So then what you do is you just take this and you make a copy of it. You just press Shift and drag to copy that up. And here you make this much lower, like let's say 5. And it means that you have to take the light, you select the light here, and you make the light invisible. Now, by making the light invisible, you'll see you get nothing outside. But you want to see something outside, so you come along and you go rendering, and you come into the environment tab here, and this one here which you've made darker, you drag and drop that in there, and you say instance. And that's on use map. And now what happens is you see this darker one outside, and the lighter one creating the light here. And you go, okay, well, that's still blown out, so let's bring this down, let's try 1. And 1 we're expecting to be too dark. So, yeah, it's a bit dark, so maybe 2. And you decide, okay, you like that. Just as an example, right? Now, you've also got a problem here. And the problem is to do with this environment map. I'll show you. As an example, if I take this and I turn this off, turn the light off here, and I render, you get this extra light coming in. And this light, this is just GI, which is coming in from here. So, it's coming in from this. So it means that if you don't want any light coming in from here, you don't want any GI, because now you've got double GI. You've got it coming from your light, and you have it coming from this HDRI, which is in the environment map. So to get around that, you come into your render settings, and you go into your environment slot here, and you can click on the GI, and just make that black. And now you render. You still have an issue, but you can't see it here. Okay, so the problem becomes here when you have reflection on, is that you start picking up the reflection here. So bear in mind right now the light is switched off, this light's off, and all we've got is this HDRI, which we've put here in the environment tab. Now this HDRI is causing GI, which we've now handled by putting this GI and making it black, but it's also causing reflection and refraction, which you can see here in the window. Okay, but you've got other reflection and refraction coming into the whole space. So to handle that, you have to click this and make that one black as well. And you can turn off the maps here. And then you'll see there'll be no reflection now coming through from this environment tab. Oops, wrong render window. So now that reflection isn't coming in. And it's like I said before, right? If you take this light and you turn this on, now what you have is you have the light outside coming in, and you have another light in the environment, which you can control independently. But it's because you need that independence, because this one that's lighting the scene is blowing everything out. So that's why you need to be able to come in here and have this separate. What you need to realize is that when you have it separate here, it causes its own series of problems, in that you need to turn off just these 2 points, the GI in the environment and the reflection refraction in the environment. So that's how you do it. Okay, this is how you do it with these 2 boxes here. If you don't do that, like I said before, you end up with double GI and double reflection refraction. So it's very important to realize that when you're using this. Now, just the other points, since we're going over this, the other points which you need to realize are, if you go over here, look at refraction environment. So what this does, if you turn this one on, because you also have it here, is this overrides this one. So, let's say you have some glass, but you want something coming in as the reflection into the scene, and you want something different coming in as refraction. So then you turn this on, and you put a different refraction object in here. Now I've got no glass here, but I'll just show you quickly. I'll just build a window and put some glass on it. If I just take a box, and right where this window is, I'm just going to make this little box. And just make a quick glass material. And I'm just going to assign this to that box. And make my refraction white. And my reflection stick up here. And just so you can see, if I click on these two, you can see what's happening there. And my IOR, I'm going to make that 1. Because, you know, for Windows, really, that's what it is. You get this weird thing here when you make IOR 1, but it renders out correctly. So now, you'll see exactly the same. Oh, actually, you won't. So now what we're doing is, even though we've got glass there, and we should be seeing the light through it. Oh, it's because I got the override material on. I'm just going to turn off the override material here. And now what will happen is we'll get that. I mean, I could also have told it to exclude that, but... So we get black. And what's happening is we've got reflection, refraction, and we've told it to be black. And if it's getting anything, it's, you know, it's confused right now. So we come here again, and we've got these, and let's just label these so we know what they are. So this is going in the HDRI, this is the light, and this is going in background. And then we can take that same, actually, we can just take the same background and plug this into here. And then when we render, you get that, but you'll see the reflection is still white here. Anyway, this one here, because you've got light coming in from the HDRI, you got GI from this, you want to leave this checked and black. You're not going to change this HDRI coming in from the light. You know, with the light going on, it's always going to create GI, so just leave that black for now. If we turn on refraction, sometimes you'll end up with something different in refraction, something different in reflection, and something different lighting the scene. In this case, this should be exactly the same. You know, but you might take this, copy it, and rename this refraction, and plug that into the refraction slot, and then rotate this one. And then you'll see this rotates. And that's just because it's on refraction. So now you've got 1 on refraction, 1 on reflection, and 1 lighting the scene. And that's how you use this. This overrides this refraction, makes it so this is just a reflection. And secondary matte environment, we don't have a matte environment in here, but if you do, it will overwrite the reflection from the matte environment, and you can put another reflection here on this. So that's what that's going to do. But that's how you play with this. You need to look at this environment, and you need to know, if you come here in the environment tab, you put an HDRI in there, you're going to get GI and you're going to get reflection, refraction. And if you have an HDRI also lighting the scene, it means you're going to end up with reflection, refraction, and GI from this and from your light. So you can handle that by just turning these on, making these black, and having nothing in here, and then you'll be fine. If I ever take a scene from someone else, it's the first thing I start checking is, you know, what do they have in the environment slot? What lights do they have? Do they have HDRIs? And what have they done with this environment tabs? And then the first thing I do is I turn everything off and I make it so it renders out black. And then when I know it renders out black, then I can start working with what's going on, because, you know, you also get self-illumine materials in the scene, and they can cause light coming in, and they can be yanked really high, so there can be numerous issues. But this is what you want to be looking at. You need to be understanding this. When you're putting HDRIs in the scene, that's fine, but you need to understand how it affects these and how this has an effect here with the environment map. And then I'm going to take this reflection one, and I'm going to reduce this. Let's try 0.5. And we're just trying to get that reflection there to be a decent amount. So that's not doing anything. Let's come back to reflection. 0.01. Just push it really low. See if we can get it black or dark. Okay. Let's turn this off. See what happens. So we're getting it out dark. Maybe to do with the rotation of the HDRI, you know, if that's looking directly at the sun, that's going to be a problem. What do we have this set at? Reflection. Rotated 70 degrees. This one's here. Let's just try flipping it around. Let's try 180. Means the sun's coming straight in from that angle. Yeah, it looks correct. Let's try 120. That's reflecting off back here and the light's back there, so that's why that is. Let's try 220. Now the light will be over there. And now this is reflecting from behind. Okay, so that's all that's going on here. This is reflecting the light, the bright light of the day, the sunlight. So about 180 works, isn't it? And come down a bit lower, 170. Okay, but you can get the idea here of how this is working and what's going on. And how you can have a separate one in the reflection and a separate one in the refraction. So we've overridden it. And it's picking this up because the reflection is reflecting the refraction. So that's reflecting the sunlight. And that's what's going on, and that's why this is looking weird. And so if you want, I mean, there's various things you can do. You know, you can select this box and right-click and V-ray properties and visible in reflections. If you turn that off, you render. Try the other one. There you go. So what we did is we just made the glass here. We came in here and made it so it's not visible in reflections. And so this isn't picking up the glass in those reflections. It's just going straight beyond it and looking at what's out there. And, you know, it's important, you can see the problems here that you can run into. So it's important you understand these little tweaks and little things you can do in order to resolve these issues. And you can go, okay, refraction, okay, reflection map, okay, GI map, and you can handle these independently. And realize that with this, I have no light here. So all I'm dealing with, all I'm getting is GI. I'm not getting any actual light generated. But it's working. So what I've done here in the end is, for now I've left these reflection refraction maps in. I've changed everything over to 4. So I went from 1 to 4, and if you look at 4, it's this one. So we were previously using 2, and 4 is this, so it's a lot more cloudy, but a lot more bounce light going on there. So I changed over to 4, and I put this in GI, and I had to change the multiplier here on this. I've gone down to 10, and the rotation I've put back to 70. And if you look, you're getting a nice amount of bounce light coming into the scene. And this is what I mean when I'm saying you want to be looking at these and you want to be, you know, you can just light the scene with the GI. Or you can just light it in the environment slot. So that's a beautiful amount of light. It's softly lit, and that's going to work great. And that's really, you know, there's no lights here. All that's being done is with these environment tabs. So know that they're there, know they can be used, and know that you can get fantastic results from them.